Roz here doing a review on our ghost tour last night as we promised we would. Hey Roz, how you going?
I'm going tired, but actually quite well besides that.
That is the thing I find after a ghost tour, that quite often feeling very flat and tired sort of thing. And that's outside of the late night that we had, because it must have been, well close to 2:30, 3 a.m. before we were even getting home and into bed in that sense. So it was a good night. So for those that haven't sort of followed our talk over the last couple of days, Roz and I and my daughter and a beautiful couple of friends and her boyfriend actually did a tour with Haunted Horizons at Glenbar at Strathalbyn. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to do too much in the way of lives. I did sneak in a very short 5-second one while we were left in lockdown. So, but after that, I was told we weren't allowed to. So I did respect their wishes, but we thought we would come live today and give you a bit of feedback on what we sensed and what actually happened. And fortunately, being Roz's very first ghost tour, we were lucky to be able to get some action last night. So it was really interesting, Roz.
It was. I especially like the fact that, look, it's not all supposition and guesswork, because what the guys use is tools. There's some various tools that they're using to actually verify, quantify, actually it gives that, I wouldn't say exactly scientific base to it, but there is the evidence there that there's something happening that is not on our physical in person to person activity. It certainly was something that was paranormal activity.
Yeah, that's it. And coming from the psychic's point of view, but with Roz and I both having the ability, it is really interesting to add the tools or the equipment into it as well, whether it's the video camera and catching the images, or it's the REM pods and different stuff like that, the voice boxes and stuff. So, and sometimes it's really nice to have that backup stuff to what we're feeling, to have the machines that clarify that stuff as well, because there are a few times we had some really amazing conversations going where we'd be asking questions and we are getting the perfect replies back from the voice boxes and stuff like that. So and I love the fact that there were multiple, where there were 6 in our group plus the tour guide, but the fact that there were multiple people in our group that are intuitive, because what I could be experiencing can be very different to what Roz or Simone or Ashley or my daughter was picking up in that way as well, because we all get information differently and we work differently as well with that. So it was really good to have the tools. So we've got a few people in. Deidre, yes, you're definitely on the right page. I am only just here on Leanne Winston Psychic Medium and on our YouTube channel as well with that. So Jessica, whereabouts did you go? We went to Glenbar Estate at Strathalbyn here in South Australia, honey. So it's Roz and I were just talking about how it's sort of quite addictive. I've been addicted to this side of it for a while, and I think I'm going to get Roz addicted too. So.
Well, the enticement's there now, because after the first experience, it is definitely... I want to explore more. There is so much more depth into it, and especially when it gets into the Victorian stuff, the Ouija boards.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's going to be our next one. Will we be a little more hands-on sort of thing in that side of it? So, hey, Kylie. Deidre's just saying thank you. You are very welcome, honey. It's our pleasure. So basically we started the night off with up in the chapel, where the company that we were touring with, doing the tour with, gave some history on the property and what they sort of know without going too much into the ghosty sort of side of it. Debbie Skinner, hey, honey, she's just saying it was a busy night there, hun. Yeah, it was. And it was amazing. And I love the fact that we had our own little private group rather than having other public members in there that you don't know. For me, it was like with the group that we have, totally trust that, people are going to do the right things and not deliberately do stuff to make sounds and stuff like that. So, you know, you didn't have to question, was that somebody in the group that did that, you know, or was trying to be funny around that side of it. Hey, Sandra, how you going, honey?
And that certainly would have, it certainly helped knowing that for myself too, as being a first time that I've actually been to the paranormal investigation style of ghost tour.
That's it. And it was good.
Whatever.
That's it. And it was good because in the group we had 2 of you that had never done a ghost tour before in that side of it, and there was 3 of you that never had been to Glenbar either. So, you know, for myself, Ashley and Tara, we had been to that property and experienced stuff there once before, but never to the level that we did last night, the physical side of it, more so in that sense. So we're sitting in this chapel. You know, Simone's whispering to me that she's feeling pressure on her right hand side and the coldness, and you were the other side of me. And I think all 3 of us felt that energy move through while they were doing their little speech at the beginning.
Yeah.
In that side. Yeah, Jessica, we're going to get into what we picked up in a second with that. Yes, we did certainly get stuff, quite interesting stuff from Spirit as well. But it was, like I said, it was really good to have the equipment to back the stuff up and have that physical side of it as well. Unfortunately, we don't get access to the videos and stuff that they do. I'm sure bits and pieces, if they find interesting, will pop up on their Facebook page. They share occasionally or share with other tours in that sense. But when we went back to visit because basically what we did was did a lap around the property in the different areas, the chapel down in the cellar, different areas of the house.
I like the way you said it, lap around. The stairs weren't quite what you'd call a lap. You get the impression that it's fast. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I worked with some of it, but yes.
And mind you, even the very first staircase was very steep with very narrow steps and very down high.
Yeah.
That's it. So we certainly got our legs worked out in that sense. And then you go down to the cellar and it's this really steep, short staircase, but you've got to also watch your head because the height between part of the beams isn't very high either. And then you go over to the house and you've got the staircase up there as well. So it's definitely not a property to visit if you're somebody that struggles with walking or unbalance and stuff like that in that sense. But, you know, we got around it. The focus was on
we managed.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So, so we went from the cellar into the house and then we sort of had a bit of a break and then got into the investigation side of it as well. So we were lucky to start back in the chapel originally on the ghost tour, like the hunting side of it, the investigation side of it. Yeah. And it was quite interesting because you're sitting there in the dark and your eyes adjust to the surroundings and the darkness sort of thing. But when we started really picking up on some energy in there, things went really dark. Like I was sitting between Ros and Simone at each side of the room. Yeah, we're black. Simone just disappeared. And then I look at somebody said about Ros and she was picking up on stuff.
There too, yeah. It was.
Yeah. And I wish I could have caught that with a camera because I don't know what you were feeling at the time, but I could see this big energy next to you that would sort of lean into you and then sort of sway back and then come back in again as well. And you were feeling it in your body, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I couldn't quite see that. I was more sensing it, I suppose, because you guys were seeing it from that distance. And it's like anything that's a piece of art. You can see it better when it is at the distance. So I think probably because that entity was so close, it almost did feel like there was, I wouldn't say a blending. I didn't feel a connection to it, but I did just sense it was close. Because it was.
And it's interesting the pressure changes and stuff that you get when spirit sort of leans in that sense. I am noticing there's a couple of people asking psychic questions. We're not here to do that today. we'll love to answer your questions around this ghost hunting, or you share with us what you've got or places that you've been that you've noticed is haunted. But we're not, you can catch us on Friday night or Wednesday night, and Roz's cards each morning as well for those questions. All right.
Although
So
I answer those questions on the morning ones, but yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So
that's how, yeah. It's not today.
No, no, we're too tired. We're still on that kind of tired high.
Yes. Well, I'm probably going to be silly.
Yeah, that's it. Dee's just saying, at any stage, did you get scared from any energy? Yes. I wouldn't say scared. I felt more uncomfortable back down in the cellar sort of thing, but we did have 2 people in the group that needed to leave the cellar, in the sense that I guess it probably presents more like a panic attack. Would you say, Roz, with the girls?
I think in that, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the unknowing of what was actually happening. Yeah. So in the physical, because it was interesting that response that the body had to what the energy was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. And Dana, that's probably a really good question for where we're leading into at the moment. So I'll explain sort of what happened in a sense. My daughter was sharing some information that she got with the tour guide and she felt that some of that information was what she had heard from him in the sense prior to last night's visit that we'd done probably 12 or 18 months ago. But I think what has happened is she's heard from him in the history side a little bit. It touched on an area around the Indigenous sort of people of that area, and she has also sensed it in herself, so channeled the information, which when that happens for us, well, for myself, Roz, I'm going to talk for myself, it seems really real, doesn't it? You find that for yourself? So sometimes it can be hard if you haven't got the experience or you're still learning to sort of know what is the physical realness to the energetic side of the realness.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way that I can put it.
That, I mean, we all do need to actually learn that difference in being able to discern what is something that we have actually had as a factual experience to what our actual senses are adding to that as the extra, which is sort of what you're saying. And it can be a bit difficult sometimes because of that sense of how much a reality it is in this here that we're sensing compared to remembrance of, what is the facts that we've already heard. Yeah.
That's it. Ross, do you have a wind chime around you?
Yeah, there's one out the window. Hearing it.
Yeah, I was hearing it. But I asked that question because, I'm hearing wind chimes, but we did hear a wind chime at some stage last night. There was absolutely no wind or any reason why we should have heard that. And that's why I was just checking that it was a physical side of it in that sense. And so, Dana, to your question, when spirit sort of does come in like that, or there's something that we don't want to take on, we sort of we protect ourselves, we let it go. Now, when we're going into a place like that, the tour guide always says, don't put your protection up because you want to experience stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't get scared when we were down in that cellar, even though Tara and Ashley were experiencing stuff, and Ashley felt that spirit, well, I think spirit was trying to take over her body, but her body went into that, resist and panic sort of mode in that sense. But the moment she stepped out of that space, and the same thing for Tara, they let go of that energy sort of thing. They were able to sort of recenter, ground themselves and come back in with that. Okay. So with Tara, she was sharing information that she was getting, but it became a little bit of a debate between what I would call a debate between the tour guide for what he knows and what Tara's picking up on. And the moment that energy sort of got a little bit more in heightened, and the tour guide was trying to understand what tarot was coming up from and sort of break it down, because knowing that it could be something that she's channeling and getting told and feeling, we had the REM pods, we had the K2s going off, like we had 3 or 4 different instruments actually going absolutely berserk at those times. And the more that conversation got in heightened, the more the equipment went off, sort of thing. But I loved it because we had one male in our group besides the tour guide. The tour guide challenged him to go and sit in the far corner where I know there's been action in that area before. He had to climb over, a table and different stuff and find a little comfy corner to sit in. And the tour guide set the challenge to get Joel out of the corner. So Spirit, if you need to, get Joel, do something to Joel to get him out of the corner, because he was open. He's not somebody that disbelieves, but he's open to either sense, and that's the way a lot of males are mostly that I've come across anyway.
Yeah, not entire cynics, but certainly that way a little.
Yeah. I think it's more the scientific brain, which is
the science.
Yeah, and I think it creates that balance as well. So, but it's funny because like the tour guide set this challenge for Spirit with Joel. Nothing was happening. He was quite happy. He was getting comfortable. He was settling in for the night, I think, back there. But I was feeling discomfort with an energy that was sort of lower to the ground and back a little bit behind me. And it was funny because I couldn't have my legs near the table. I had to swivel around on my chair and sort of move out of that space in that sense, which his girlfriend, Ashley, was next to me, and I'm going, my legs are getting cold, and hers are too. I actually touched her leg a couple of times, and they were icy cold to touch. And she started shivering and shaking sort of thing. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And she sort of went into what most people would call a panic sort of attack, in the sense that she lost control, hyperventilating, that sort of thing, but was still quite responsive with us in that sense. And the worst, it just kept going in, would you call it flow? In a flow where it sort of get worse and then sort of settle?
Yeah, it had an energy of its own within that anxiety, if you call it. It was probably just that battle of inner resistance, the
flight and fight.
Turn on without knowing it, that subliminal pre-trance state.
Yeah, that's it. So and it's funny because you got to quite in a heightened state. He flew out that corner across the table and stuff, and he was there in a flash. And
I didn't even see him do that, really.
We just heard him like we're in the pure darkness, and I'm thinking, that's commitment for you, sort of thing. And it just kept getting worse that he had to take her out. But like I said, by taking her out of that energy, she was able to let go of it and recenter and focus, sort of thing, to come back in and be more aware of what was going on, sort of thing, in that side of it. But it was funny because down there, would you like to explain what you felt with the energy you helped?
It's interesting as far as how you pick up energies. Each and every one of us is going to be different in how we do that. And I do tend to have a fairly close affinity with the Indigenous energies around wherever I happen to be. I don't always pick up on them, but in the first going into the cellar, I had felt that heaviness around what involvement the Aboriginals had initially, and this was when the building was there. So I felt that energy and the desire of them not wanting to have any other, white skins there was effectively what it was. I didn't sense that there was absolute hatred or anything. There was still an acceptance of this presence and the steady integration, but there was certainly then that anger and that feeling of heaviness. But I also was getting what was the message of I'm lost and wanting to go. It was like I want to cross over. There were some of those spirits there that are actually wanting to cross over. and one in particular that I felt that energy with quite strongly. So I knew that even in that instance that I needed to give some sort of assistance at that time. So for some of that time, just a little bit of that time, I was able to at least guide one to the light. So it's one of those things as far as spirit and ghosts. I mean, they are only just it's labels that we put on them because that's what we're used to. So the entities that are there, we do call them ghosts, and we do call them spirits, and we do call them whatever. And I was able to, at least with that. Now I've lost my train of thought because I'm tired.
Yeah, my brain's a bit like that today.
But it's that feeling that, yeah, look, they are needing to be moved on when they're asking to. We were using some devices and apps or whatever, because I noticed Alyssa's mentioned something about an app where you get our communication was, and there was frequently names and things that were coming up, but also I'm lost. And I feel that there does need to be that readiness to actually assist those who are ready in the spirit world, that are there as the ghosts and the spirits communicating. If they're asking to be helped to cross that bridge, to move through the light or whatever, because what comes to mind is Ghost Whisperers. There's a video, movie that was done, or a series or whatever. It's what you first think of. But I have actually had a real life experience of being able to help someone in crossing over myself before. So I knew what I was able to do last night or this morning, whatever time it was, to be able to help a spirit move through that light and be able to go home, or wherever the destination is. We're all going to find out one day. So it's that energy, and I sort of thought, well, do I share that or not? Because they might not want me back if I'm sending them all over. And they have no ghosts left.
Yeah. And Lauren's just asking where we were, honey. We were at Glenbar at Strathallan here in South Australia. Okay. And I think that's a really good point to make too, Ros, in just what you were saying is, as much as these people were humans, the physical form, they are still a soul that has been that has passed over in that side. They can get stuck at time, and as much as we go out and we do what they call ghost hunting, there always needs to be that level of respect for what we are doing. Okay. Absolutely. People make fun of it. People go out and set the wrong intentions to go in there and be silly and disrespectful in a sense. So when we do this stuff, especially for me, and I know, Roger, you're very similar in the way that I am, we are going into these places and holding that high level of respect for those that have passed over, as well as the history of what is going on there as well. So, we don't go in and provoke like some people do. We go in, we ask the questions. We can hold a conversation at times when there's activity. And believe me, I've been into ghost tours where there is nothing, or it might be a very low, what the tour guide called a low grade connection in that side of it. So
good activity last night.
Yeah, definitely.
It was really good for a first experience too.
Yeah. That's it. So Elisa's just saying, hi, have you ever used the Neurochronic app?
No, Necrophonic.
Necrophonic, sorry, I knew I was going to get that.
It's just that I because I've read a hell of a lot over the years, I've gotten used to being at least given a good guess to what pronunciations are. I haven't heard that one. I'm definitely going to be looking it up. Yeah. As you showed me an app last night, I hadn't even known about either.
Last night we were using the Ghost Tube on our phones. Obviously, with the virus and everything and the restrictions going on, they are limited to what they can let us use. Yeah. So we had our own stuff. And yes, it's an app on the phone. Yes, you've got technology involved in that. So, I'm not 100% sure that they are 100% accurate, but when we get nights like last night when it all flowed, the names that were coming out over the night, and at the end of the night, we actually got to view some history that the owners of the property have put together with the family tree. 98% of those names were coming from that family tree, and, it's not something you could set up or anything like that. So, for me, in situations like that, I'll take it as it comes in that sense.
It's interesting with the technology because, I've got this app on the phone. I decided this morning after I'd done my daily card reading that, I'm going to see what it comes up with. And there was some similar things here in my home, some similar things that were coming up with the killed and the, what was the other one? I'm lost. But it's also... I didn't run it for a huge amount of time. And then I thought, gee, have I actually brought one of them with me? And I knew I hadn't, but you sort of still wonder when hearing that on the app. And that's why seeing the app mentioned there in the comments, I sort of thought, how accurate is it? But it is coming up with some of the stuff, some of the names. Did I bring an entity? I knew I wasn't, but it's still, in itself, even the technology itself is energy that's been exchanged in the skills and the knowledge that's been put all together to create that app that gives us another level of a tool that is able to help clarify and fine-tune our focus in what we do on the psychic sense or the intuitive sense or whatever you want to name it. But I'd say it as psychic. It's all energy. It's all vibration that's available for all of us. And I thought, no, well, I'm pretty sure I didn't because I don't have a fear of the spiritual entities. I suppose that's partly because I've had, things that have occurred from when I was in that teenager year and first experiencing those, oh, shit stuff that you sort of see and think, freak out, shit, all the rest of it. And you grow through that to where there is the level of maturity and understanding around what is spirit, what is the energies, what are entities, and all of that. Because there's so many different understandings around it.
For sure. Yeah. Dee's, just hit my mic. Sorry, guys, if you heard that. Dee's just asking, do you ever finish an energy stays with your attachments when you leave? Yeah, honey, they can. My oldest daughter, when we did Z Ward, probably a couple of years ago. She's quite intuitive as well. We come home, went to bed, had a couple hours sleep. She woke me up because she couldn't sleep. She tried leaving the bedroom light on and everything. I actually got into bed with her and said, let's turn the light off. She was like, no. And I ended up talking her into turning her salt lamp up so we could have the light off and just sort of sleep with that softer light. And she was seeing energy moving in her room. And I'm just like, honey, they're not going to hurt you. Tell them to go away. The only way to calm her down was to sleep with her. I laid there with my eyes open and I was seeing all this energy moving constantly. And in the end, I told them to bugger off. I need my sleep. I'm tired. I wasn't going to mess around with it in that sense. They left. They respected me and my wishes in that side of it. And then we both could.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. It is that they have to do as they're asked.
Yeah.
It's just something that I've learnt over time.
That's it. It's a two-way street.
It's not their control. It's ours. So, it is really what we understand and believe in that level of control. If you believe that you don't have control, they're going to get it over you. You're standing in your own strength, your own energy, and knowing that if you're asking them to leave, they must, and they do.
That's it, exactly. So Dennis just said, and whenever I went to a psychic ward to stay, I used to get a healer to cross the lost souls. Yeah. And they do get lost. And I understand these companies out there that run these tours, that's their business and whatnot. And that's where I think we need to have the respect when we do get souls that are stuck and are wanting to cross over, that is, it's our obligation to help them if we can in that side. Alice is just saying, I will literally ask when I hold on to the instantly tell me names of the family and friends. I ask for validation to literally the colour of my shirt. Yeah, I love it. And that's the thing. These are things that we can do to ask the questions to get that information, that communication rolling. And I think it's great to back it up like that as well,
Yeah,
because
good validation there. Yeah,
mm,
the way.
that's it, exactly. So then from then, Ros, we moved up into the house.
Yes.
So,
Oh,
and you spoke about tools before, which was, and all this equipment are just a form of tools that we can use to help us with see the physical side of it. So when we went into the house, the front room, I guess it was the lounge room, I would say, it had lots of different stuff in it.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
had some the company had set up some mirrors for mirror gazing. So mirror gazing, for those that don't know what it is where you sit in a dark room with a mirror. We had a couple of those little battery operated candles that flicker, excuse me, sitting on the table at like a couple for each mirror. And what we're doing is we're sitting in front of that mirror and we're looking into it. And sometimes you can get the mirrors to change. So you're seeing your face, your vision sort of thing, or your reflection, I should say. And
Mm.
for me, I'll just explain what I got. Then, Ros, I'm going to ask you to sort of take over because a lot of it I don't remember. But um, I started looking in and I kept seeing all these male faces. So I would explain them. It'd be Aboriginal. It'd be a long, sort of drawn out face. It'd be quite a round face. And as I said, I'm seeing a male that's got a very round, chubby face with a very wide, not broad nose, and it looks like this. Simone across the table started describing exactly what I was saying. As we were saying it, I would say at the same time, sort of thing, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I could feel myself being pulled into the mirror and then being pushed back, pulled in. And I could feel spirit standing behind me wanting to take over, which when they do that, it's like I go into a trance. It scares the shit out of me, and I'm going to be honest about that. I've probably done it 6 or 7 times now, but I decided to surrender and allow them to go with it, and they kept sort of pulling me in and backwards, and I remember saying to them, "If you're gonna fricking do it before I change my mind." And I think I probably came across a little bit firm at that time because I was ready to back out of it. And the mirror changed and it went dark. I could see my chest, I could see the writing on my top, but I couldn't see my face. I could just see the surrounds of my face in that sense. Do you want to take over, Ros? Because when I go into that, I've got no idea.
No, I mean, you said at the time that you had no memory of that, and I understand that. Not that I myself have gone into a trance state, but for my own mirror gazing, it was that changing of faces and all that you describe. Not the same visuals, it was different. But
Mm.
when you'd gone into that state of stillness, there was the sense of Leanne, are you there? Like, what's happening, Leanne? And there's no response. So you didn't actually speak through any of this as you were first staring at the mirror. And I'm on one side because it was a round table. So I was on the quarter, if you imagine it in the 4 quarters. So as you started, you didn't move, but your head was turning. And the visual that I had of what your head looked like, because remember, I was also doing my own mirror gazing, but I'd looked up and there was this face that was turning around slowly. And it sort of reminded me of, if anyone's seen The Exorcist, it was the speed of the face going around.
Oh, that's creepy.
And I should go this way, going around slowly, but it had no features as such. Your face didn't have this spirit entity, whatever, had no features as such, but that could have been because of my own gazing, visual transposing, I don't know. But your face was moving like that, and you'd actually, on that move, you were staring at me for quite a few seconds, but I couldn't see the features, and then it just continued slowly moving around like that till it was looking over at whoever was sitting there, who I can't remember. There was even someone sitting there. But it was the slowness and my thinking, oh, exorcist, it's possessed. There was certainly that impression of a possession. So you certainly had that spirit input that was certainly evident in the face. And it was just the slow return. Like none of this you weren't responding to the talk that we were trying to, communicate by speaking. But you certainly looked and returned back around slowly until you were facing the mirror again. Whatever length of time that took, I don't know if anyone actually timed it, but there was certainly the Leanne, what's happening now, what's happening, and the communication that we were trying to interact with you.
Yeah.
Didn't work until there was one of those, was it one of the gadgets or there was something that went off? Oh, no, the person who was on the 180 degrees straight across from you. When you started to return back and look straight at her, she couldn't sit there with that energy, the intensity of what the energy was being put toward her. She had to leave the room and she held the door so that you couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So that was
I think
the effect that had.
She said she was in tears.
Yeah.
Because I have no recollection of any of that.
No, and you didn't. So she was frightened. She couldn't, it was definitely a very strong energy that was within you, whatever it was. To me, my sense of it was that it was certainly a male that was in that role of your body at that point in time, but not enough to define features to say, oh, that could be, whichever of the spirits that were there.
Well, I know in the mirror I was only getting male faces before going into it.
Look, it was very interesting to see because it's not something that I had seen before, was the trance state in such a interesting way, I suppose. Spooky. I was spooked by it. Like I suppose because I've got a different understanding of it from someone else who's Wiccan, from someone else who's totally cynical or whatever. I mean, it's just because that's my understanding.
Yeah.
I know that you cannot be hurt by it if that's what you're deciding your understanding and belief is. Because I just know that for me. So
yeah. And that's it. And I guess for me, like doing the training, and the first time I actually probably really witnessed trance properly, I did one with David, can't think of his name. He visited Elizabeth Spiritualist Church, David Thompson, years ago, which I found really fascinating. But when I really got to experience that really close was when I went to Sydney to do my certification with Lisa Williams. And we did table tipping and ectoplasm, and also she did the trance sort of side of it. Watching her face change, her physical and her voice and everything like that was really incredible. And when she explained, and I noticed it while she was doing it, I seen her soul step out of her body and stepping behind her. And when we could ask questions later, she explained that she does that to protect herself. So she forces everything to come in on the side view and the front view so she can, from a soul level, still control that side of it, because they take over our body in that sense. So when I have accidentally slipped into trance or done it with the intention to do it, I've done the same thing. I've made sure my soul steps out and stands behind. So it's like the overseer of what comes in. So I'm not letting anything nasty come in that side of it. So, but I know I scared Simone to the point that she was quite upset about it.
Yes, it did.
Sort of thing. But she knew physically I would not hurt her, but she knew when to remove herself from that position because it made her uncomfortable, which I think is a really good, important thing at the same time.
I think too that in the space that we were in, and knowing like with how you were able to go into that trance, allow that trance to occur because you've had training in it. If it had still happened to someone who hadn't had training in it, knowing that we were in the space and with the right people, that it still would have been something that was going to be as safe as it could be, because there are ways of being able to get it back to normal. Not being lost in that realm. Sometimes
exactly.
we hear people do have that happen. How that can occur. Look, there's very many various reasons, only just because I've read about it, not from personal experience, thank goodness. It too reminds me that it's not every bits and pieces of what is our spiritual side and psychic senses that we have to experience for ourselves either. I might never get to experience a trance state, and that's no big deal, because it's not something that's for everybody. Being able to release ectoplasmic, whatever it is, isn't for everybody. I mean, there's various different risks in each and every stage of working in this way with the energy fields and vibrations. So it's just actually really getting to know yourself and what you're actually being guided into for yourself that's going to benefit others. Because if it's just for your own edification, then you just the word, it's a that word that starts with an N, that's when you love yourself and you're only doing everything for yourself, and it's just a whole heap of inner bullshit that you're trying to follow because you want a big note and be fantastic at everything. It really does need to be that we're working to be for the benefit of all, and the bigger picture of creating that healing energy for our world. So I just needed to add that, because that's where I think it was important for me to have heard, I'm lost, I want to cross over. It was that that was my sense of it. We're here for purpose, not just because we want to have fun with ghosts.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's it. And it's something that does really intrigue me, is both sides of this, the psychic side. She knows where you're going with that. I knew what you meant, but I just couldn't get the words out. You can tell you're rather sleep deprived, drained, brain. I was going to say brain dead, but that's probably not the right word to use.
No, it's not. It was overstimulation.
Slower brains. But like I said, doing this, the trance side of it does scare the shit out of me, and I will only do it if I am totally comfortable. But I've always got that fear energy, that resistance that sort of sits there when I go into it. And with the group we've got last night, with the tour guide and the people that were in our group, I had no problem knowing that there was at least 2 or 3 people in that group that would know how to bring me out of it if I couldn't myself. But all I remember is coming out. I wasn't sure what was going on around me, but there was a squealing noise. That's all I remember. So I don't know.
One of the devices made a sound or something, and that's when we knew that you were starting to come back.
Yeah, because Tara said something about I tried to push, apparently, that I think she said it was my phone, off the table.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that was making
a movement, but you didn't make any noise, sound, voice. That wasn't. Yeah, it was very.
Way to shut me up.
And when you said the fear thing too, I mean, it really is a healthy thing to have a little level of stress, nervousness, or fear around some of this stuff, because then you're going to actually be more aware when something's happening, and question it. Don't just automatically, for those out there that have had a taste of I mean, I'm aware of when it gets to that level of dropping into it, but I don't want to, so I've decided no, not yet.
And that's the thing, you do what's comfortable with you for you. There's no right or wrong way. It's just what, for my belief, is what we do. We do is right, that we can cope with and control in that side of it. So, Kimberly, we're not actually answering questions on that sort of stuff today. You can catch one of our other shows with that. We are talking about our ghost tour that we did at the Glenbar estate at Strathalbyn last night. So we're just sort of doing a bit of a review on that. I do see there's a really big comment here from Dee as well. Did you want to read it from your end, hun? Because I've got
Okay.
something blocking my half that
So,
comment.
Dee is actually saying, when my mum was passing in ICU on the last night, she was talking to all those that had passed. One, she yelled to piss off very vehemently. She mentioned a Jack Frost, which I've now been told was a boarder at my aunt's place, as in border, not spelt Bordor. It's Bourder. That's just the grammar Nazi I am. The nurses were determined my mum was delirious, but she was making perfect sense to us. So my husband went to come home for a quick shower, but the car wouldn't start. Then a nurse came in and absolutely stunk of old tobacco, but wasn't a smoker. When I got home after she passed, I shouldn't be laughing at that, but it really does gel, doesn't it? When I got home after she passed, my eldest daughter said, "Mum, look in her box," till I found paperwork I needed. Then my mum told my daughter, "Beware, my eldest brother is on his way." He hadn't booked the ticket till that night. Since her passing, my brother has caused problems. My mum passing has my husband now believing.
I love it.
It does sometimes take those steps for us to actually become aware there is more than just the physical body. We are the energy and vibration of our soul.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, last night when we got in the car, you were parked in the car, your car was next to mine, you drove off, and we sort of pulled out within probably a minute or so of you. And Simone and I just went, "Oh my God, we can smell kerosene."
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And Tara goes, "What's kerosene?" Something for us as children was used in heating, a form of heating.
Yeah, and guess what went through the place at certain times? There was a fire one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Was while the were away.
Yeah. So, there's all these things that happen. So Dee's just saying exactly. So it is really fascinating. And, I was grateful last night. We had a lot of action for your very first, yours and Joel's very first tour. I love breaking it down. I love
wonderful. Because of those steps that I experienced, but even witnessing others such as yours and Samantha's and Tara's, and because that was our group that we were in. But we did have those couple of times where we came together, and especially at the finish, there is a bit of a debrief, so that you're actually sharing what each group had experienced. And there, none were totally separately way out. There was connection of similarities in what each of us experienced, which we couldn't have shared in the way that it was moved around in the groups. So, it's not just people playing up. There is that spirit presence that's consistent in whichever location we were in. So, whether it was the chapel, the cellar, or the house.
That's it.
It really does validate how awesome life is, even from being in the physical body through to experiencing our soul and connecting with others who are in their soul state or spirit state, whatever you want to name it.
So, and I love, and this is perfect for where Dee's going with this. Yes, we still have the perfume and tobacco through the house randomly. We are non-smokers. So, and that's the thing, Spirit will find ways of letting you know that they are very much with you in that sense. So just because the physical body comes to an end, I guess is probably a good way of putting it, doesn't mean that's it. There is more afterwards. And I guess for me, Ros, and I know this is something I've sort of felt over the years, is I wish more people could see what we see. To be at peace with their family, the loved ones that have passed over in that side of knowing that it's not the end.
Yeah,
that way.
That's right. And there is no limits really on how deep we can delve into our spiritual, energetic connections. It just depends how religiously you like, how pedant, no, what's the word for it? How dogmatic you want to be, whether it's religion based or whether it is just scientific, paranormal investigation. It still is that base of spirit and the energy and the vibrations that we feel. There is that's universal across all that we're doing, that anybody can access. But we're not taught it. We're not shown it. We're not told it's acceptable to, and it'd be good if there was a little bit more training across the board when we're younger, when we have the natural ability to actually investigate it from that young age and grow it from there, rather than having it knocked on the head, buried, and told you're faking it. Their own imagining it. It's in
That's it.
Yeah,
Exactly. So, and we've all got the ability, so that's perfect.
It's
But I had to laugh last night because, I think it was October last year when we did Z Ward. It was my youngest daughter's birthday. My older daughter gave her this little teddy bear that has a little unicorn. I don't know what you would call it. It's got a tail. It's got a
unicorn.
Yeah, it's a unicorn-looking sort of thing in a sense, but as a bear. And we took it along to Z Ward with us, and Tara said, "This is my protection." As we were walking in, our favourite tour guide said, "Oh, so what are we going to call the bear?" And we called it Little, and I'm not going to mention his name, but Little Him.
It's a name.
And then somebody came out with Satan, so we said Satan. But through the investigation, and we were holding conversation with the equipment, with Spirit, and asking the questions, we went around and introduced ourselves, asked Spirit their name, and we got, I think it was Bert, off the top of our head back. And later on, we had the toys for them to play with, and we said, "What's the bear's name?" And the response that came back on the equipment was Satan. So my daughter took that along last night, and so we went up into this chapel, which is, I think it was Scottish Presbyterian. Did they say
Presbyterian?
Yeah. Presbyterian.
Yes, Scottish Presbyterian something. Yeah.
And on the table out the front, there were some crosses and stuff. So Tara went up and put it up against the cross, and we had a cat ball, which cat ball lights up when Spirit moves it, and we had one down the back of the room. So not long after getting started on the private investigation side, we kept getting the word Satan come up in our equipment. And Tara said, "If you want me to move it out of the church, you need to set off one, like the cat ball." And it set off the cat ball of all of them, the one right next to the toy. Sort of thing. And so she had to put it outside. We put it back in later. We actually left it in the church for another group later. So it would have been interesting to see what they sort of came up, if they were getting the word Satan as well with that. So it was quite interesting watching. Yeah. So Emily, you have to watch the replay, honey. We've pretty much come to the end of chat. Only simply because I've got something on in about 10 minutes time. But watch the replay. There's lots of details there as well. Yeah. Can you open yourself up to able to feel or see Spirit? Yes, honey. With the right training, you can do that. And I've certainly got a beginner's course online that you can work through in learning this stuff. Keep in mind that we all have different strengths, different abilities, and some of us are stronger in different areas. So it is about working out how you work and how to strengthen it at the same time.
And just as a pointer for that too, look, you don't have to go to training for this. It is something you have as a natural ability. But I'd always advise someone to do the learning, do the training. It's like, and not that I'm a fit person, but if you're wanting to be fit for an athletic event, you go to training. If you want to be able to discern and see Spirit in a strong way, train for it. Go to have some lessons and be guided and strengthen those spiritual muscles, those whatever you want to call it that we're using. It certainly does pay off to have training.
Yeah. It's like anything. I'm a big believer, if you don't use it, you lose it. Okay. And as children, a lot of us were closed down at a certain age.
And we need to think we could pick it up again because we weren't given permission to. Well, give yourself permission. Go and experiment. Let it happen and go learn. You'll be guided to the right teachers.
That's it, exactly. And Dee's just saying thank you.
Too, I might add.
Thank you, Roz.
I set up classes, but I just haven't got around to it yet. It
will be when it will be, is my big belief. Dee's just thanking us for a magnified experience. You're welcome. And Charlie is just saying, thank you. I will look into it. It is so interesting. It really is. So, all right. So for us, I'm sure there's going to be a nana nap or two had this afternoon.
You've got something else on for the moment, but I'm probably going to go and nana nap.
Yep. I'm going to refill my glass of apple cinnamon kombucha, and get on my next call with my partner in our Oracle cards and doing the last bit of editing that needs to be done for tomorrow's the editor. And then I think I might catch a little wink or two on the lounge.
And it's lovely. Thank you to everyone as well for coming in to find out a bit more and be part of the discussion, because with anything, if it was just Leanne and I talking between ourselves and no interaction with anyone on the outside, it'd be a bit dry, wouldn't it? Though we'd still make it work.
That's it. And that's a really good point, because we really do love getting involved in conversations with you guys. We find that most times we are being asked for those guidance and stuff like that. And, we set time aside, both of us, to do that. But I really enjoy having these conversations where we can share from us and you, and we can help you where we can in that side of it. So excellent. So Roz, I'm guessing once we get over this tiredness, that it's not going to take long before we're back on the horse, so to speak.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to look up that app that's to do with the neck or something. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'll be checking that out as well, so you can play with that. And if you are, let's say, because of all the restrictions stuff going on, if you are in South Australia and you know of properties or places that are quite haunted, please do send me an inbox, because I'd love to know. I'd love to check out some places where we can on our own in the sense. So, all right, well, thank you. And I know we're going to be booking a Victorian, Victorian style, I guess it's called, tour.
We'll get to that one.
Where all the hands on, the glass moving, and Ouija board and all different stuff.
Mum and Dad up there going,
just on the Ouija board, because we have brought it up, I'm a big believer in that is something that's probably not something to play with unless you're with somebody that's experienced and know what they are doing, because you can open up a lot of different energies in there in that sense.
And I know that one from experience as a teenager.
I've only ever done it once, and I did it with a friend that I totally trusted. It did freak me out a little bit years ago when I did it with her, but nothing negative came out of it. And I just think if you've got the wrong intentions going into it, you're opening up a whole different world of energy.
And that is so true, because as a teenager you go into things sometimes feet first, no knowledge. What I did, and it was more than once.
That's it.
I know if I'd have kept going, it would have been a different story. So yes, certainly. Just looking forward to actually having a little more of the training side of it.
That's it. And I'm sure when we do
learning more.
And that's it. And when we do the Ouija board stuff, I'm sure it's something Roz and I will be protecting ourselves rather strongly with going into it. Excellent. All right, honey. Well, thank you for hanging out with us last night. It was always an honour to spend time with you, and thank you for coming and sharing as well.
It was worth it. Certainly. If any of you get the opportunity, do take it up, and keeping that open mind. It's certainly an experience.
And I think if you want to go out there and do ghost tours with companies, check them out, look at their feedback, because I know there are some out there that play it up, and there are some really genuine ones there. We certainly, for myself, over the last few years, I use Adelaide Haunted Horizons. I'll give Alison and her amazing team a boost there, sort of thing, a good word. But if it's something you haven't done before, certainly get word of mouth from other people, look at their feedback and stuff. Trust your instincts to where you're being drawn.
Certainly let us know if you know of hauntings in places that you
Mm.
mind sharing with us.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, certainly interested.
I've got a few that I'm going to put on my list too.
Yeah, definitely. So, and even cemeteries. My husband and daughter are very much into the history of cemeteries at the moment, and would love some recommendations around that. I think he's even got his own Facebook page set up around that at the moment. Can't remember what it's called. SA Tours, Cemeteries, or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I can't remember. Yeah,
where he shares information.
you'd said that, yeah, but I can't remember what it was.
So excellent. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I love having a debrief with you, Ros.
Yeah,
on last
thanks
night.
for asking me on for today.
You're
As well.
well, you guys enjoy. Yeah, that's it. You enjoy your nap, and I'm going to do a bit more work before I get home.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Lois. Have a good week. Bye.